I'd like to call the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee to order. Do we have a roll call?
Ms. Beebe?
Present.
Ms. Beebe is present. Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Bennett is present. Ms. Bophy? Ms. Bophy is absent. Ms. Bradford?
Present.
Ms. Bradford is present. Ms. Destug? Ms. Destug is absent. Mr. Garvey? Mr. Garvey is absent. Mr. Gio?
Present.
Mr. Gio is present. Ms. Hill?
Present.
Ms. Hill is present. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Ms. Orange Jones? Ms. Orange Jones is absent. Mr. Romer?
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. You have a quorum.
First item.
Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 3.1 and 3.2.
Do you have a motion?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any objections to the motion? If not, the motion's approved.
Moving on to item 5.1 on page 25. Consideration of rescinding approval of the notice of intent regarding revisions to 741 Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators, section 2308, response to intervention. The department recommendation is to rescind.
Do you have a motion?
Can somebody review that with us?
Let's get a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
And I'll second it, but I'd still like an explanation.
Could we get someone from the department?
Is it on? The green
You know,
light.
if I actually, Ms. Jones, I might just make just a quick comment that this is actually a fairly simple change. It actually isn't a big conceptual change. The federal waiver application that we have submitted to the federal government requests for a ceasing of the school improvement process. And that's not to say we're going to cease school improvement, but it is to say that the process that is this extremely cumbersome process that districts have to go through, we're going to suggest that we no longer walk through this bureaucratic process to try to take some of the red tape out of principals' hands. This has been very broadly supported in my meetings, and superintendents locally, and I believe Superintendent Lee and I have discussed this as well, won't have to walk through this extremely cumbersome district improvement form every year. This really is a form. And the language in the form references RTI. This is basically a way of saying that because these two things are tied together and because we're proposing to end one of them, that needs to be reconciled. So it's not a conceptual change, a change in the field, no change to our commitment to RTI, which, as you know, is critical in this state. But it is just a cleanup exercise because we're no longer planning to have this term school improvement plan. Ms. Jones, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Yeah. Yeah. So this is no material change in our schools, but to make things easier for our superintendents and principals.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there any opposition to the motion?
I do have another question, not on this item. I'm sorry, it was on the consent agenda, and it's just a brief question.
Okay, can we get this one out of the way and we'll come back to you?
Okay.
Is there any objection to the motion on the table? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mr. Lee.
On page 1,
Mr. Lee, you have to make a motion to reconsider the item.
I hate to do that for
That's
just
all right.
this
Go
question,
ahead.
but I'll do it. I so move.
That's what I'm being told.
It's
What item
item
is that?
2.1 on page 1.
Okay.
I'll
We
second
need a
it.
second.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Mr. Lee?
Ready? Did that
No,
motion?
I guess,
Did
excuse
that
me.
motion
Any
pass?
objection to the motion? Mr. Lee?
I just want to know, what is Dream Keepers Academy in Caddo? That's one of the systems I represent, and I just don't know what Dream Keepers is. Is that a charter school? Is that a, what is, well, it's some kind of school because it's meeting the
Criteria.
Are you going on record that you're against dreams? I'm just saying no.
What I'm really concerned, I'm afraid this is some kind of subversive school that
This is a
Roma was
non-public.
trying to start in Caddo.
This is an independent, non-public school that's going through the Brumfield-Dodd process.
But are they operating now?
I don't know if it's operating now. I don't believe it is.
I just
but
never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't, probably because it's new. It is new, so it's new. This is just consideration of its approval under Brumfield-Dodd.
I don't have a problem with any of it, I just wondered what they are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Okay, so now I need a motion to approve the Brumfield-Dodd approval.
So moved.
Second? Do we have a
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gio. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 28, item 5.2, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 741, Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators, Section 2318, the College and Career Diploma, and 2325, Advanced Placement and International Baccalaureate. Department recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent.
Do you have a motion to approve? So moved. A
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chairman, just to give you context, this is simply, as you know, we have proposed to emphasize the advanced placement programs, and what we realize is that if you don't explicitly say in the diploma requirements that these AP classes, which are the most advanced classes that we have, actually can count toward the core four, you end up with a bit of a conflict with district administrators and principals not fully realizing that actually this AP class could count toward your diploma, and instead actually then suggesting they take a lower class to count toward the diploma. All we're saying is here, let's just add these AP classes to the core four so that they count toward the diploma. It's a more rigorous class in the first place.
Any other questions or concerns?
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
It's related, but not specifically, so if Walter wants to cut me off, he can. I want to say, I know you're putting a greater emphasis on AP in a lot of the policies that we're looking at, and the fact of not just taking the AP, but taking the AP, passing the course, and scoring a high level on the national AP exam. And I've gotten back a lot of positive feedback from a lot of sources about the idea, because we often focus on, in this state, of the lowest performing, which we should and we need to, but there's also a sense out there that we don't put enough focus at the top of the pyramid as well in terms of academic performance. And so while we're talking about AP, I wanted to tell you I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about that, and I think it's a good step forward for us.
Thank you. Well, we're very excited about the focus on AP.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item.
Next item is item 6.1 on page 31. This is public comments regarding notices of intent. We received public comment regarding Bulletin 1706, regulations for implementation of the Children with Exceptionalities Act, Subpart 1, regulations for students with disabilities, and they were submitted by Ms. Lorene Mayfield. The department recommendation is to receive public comments, approve these revisions for final adoption as ruled, noting that the LDE will resubmit omitted language as an NOI at a future date.
Do you have a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any board members have any comments or questions?
I do need clarification, because the recommendation, as I approved it, was, they said for one substantial change and two typographical or minor errors. But with this motion, are we approving their recommendation? Or
This
are
was
we
actually already approved by the board. It just wasn't captured in the notice of intent that was submitted by the department. They left that section out. So they're going to resubmit it, and it'll be advertised again. You've already approved this. You're
Okay.
just receiving these comments.
But in effect, we are recognizing
Yes.
and accepting their recommendation.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Bennett?
I'd like to know if this is in relation to a letter that I received about the legislation versus what we had approved earlier regarding the 24-hour notification. I guess that's what we're
Yeah,
going
the
to hear about.
backup is on page 31, let's see. 32, the letter's on 32.
Board members, upon review of this letter.
Catherine, recognize yourself. if you don't mind.
Sorry, Catherine Posniak, I'm the ED for BESE. Upon receiving this letter, our staff did go back and take a look at the notice of intent that was prepared by the department. And this clause was indeed left out. So the board approved the notice of intent with this clause in it. And so they approved the full revision, but when it was submitted to the register, because there was some renumbering, this clause was left out. So it has been, this clause itself has been resubmitted to the register and will be published in this month's Louisiana Register on March the 20th.
Thank you.
And by this clause, you mean the 24-hour notification?
Yes.
Because this was not the letter I received. I received 3 letters, one this morning from parents. So I'm glad it's being taken care of. Thank you.
We have one speaker, Sean Fleming.
No.
Push
Am I on
your-
now?
yeah.
Can you hear me now? Thank you for letting me speak. The
Mr.
parents,
Mr. Fleming, if you'll say your name and.
I'm sorry, I'm Sean Fleming. I'm the Deputy Director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. When the parent, I just want to let y'all know the importance of this one little clause and the need to pass it by parents. When the bill was in play at the legislature last year, the main thing parents wanted, if their children are restrained or secluded, was at least to be told about it in a timely manner. And when all the stakeholder groups that convened and reviewed the proposed language was in the rule, that language was included, and then somehow this 24-hour notice was taken out before it hit the notice of intent. We are unsure of how that happened, but I urge you, and I have not been given a copy of the change, so I'm kind of taking on face value what it is, as apparently y'all are too. It's kind of a concern of mine, since I have versions after versions of all the different rules that were reviewed by different committees, and so I kind of wanted to see a copy of it. And
You will, it'll be in the register. It'll be advertised. And you'll have an
Right, but for
opportunity.
this to go into effect next year, I don't want to keep stalling it out.
Well, this should do it, because it was
Okay.
left out accidentally with some renumbering,
Mhm.
and so now we're going back to correct it to be sure that we do the legal processing so that we get that in there, because we too know that the parents want that, and that is our desire. We by
Okay.
our approval last time.
Okay, I just wanted to stress that to y'all of how badly parents wanted that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Any opposition to this motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
That concludes your agenda.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Madam Chair, I don't think this is controversial enough, and I think the chairman.
Did I get the record? That's what I want to know.